to Thinking Outside the Box with me, Tim Box.
And me, Britt Box.
We talk about all things to do with your mental health, your emotional well-being, and how to navigate your own mind in these strange times. But of course, we're not doctors, so please don't confuse any of our advice for medical advice. And even though we come at these subjects with a slightly more light-hearted approach than perhaps you might expect, don't think we trivialise any of the things we talk about, because we certainly don't. But because we come from a different perspective, we called the podcast Thinking Outside the Box. Britt, hello.
Hi.
That was very sultry.
I should preface this with I woke up 20 minutes ago.
And I woke up about 3 or 4 hours ago. And probably you can sense the slightly different energy levels in us here. But well done for making it down the stairs into the room to partake of a coffee that I made you.
Thank you.
You've done very well. I'm sure she'll brighten up as we go along,
yes,
hopefully.
I'm sure I will. I will. But we do this thing, don't we? Obviously, you wake up earlier than me because you're old and you need to make the most out of every minute you have left.
Yeah, because time's slipping away, yeah.
And I'm youthful and I need more sleep. Apparently, teenagers need more sleep. They say that, don't they?
Exactly, so, yeah. You're more youthful and you think you're going to live forever, obviously, don't you? Then you're born.
So Tim comes up in the morning. We have a little code. It's not like the Enigma code, but like when I'm awake, I will send him an emoji of the day, and he will come up and say good morning. That's kind of it, really, isn't it?
Yes, and the emoji is normally a dinosaur.
Yeah, a spoosel.
A spoosel.
And Tim will come upstairs, and some days he'll be like, "Morning, babe, how you doing?" And then some days he'll come down and go, "Hello, how you doing?" And I'm just like, "Can you match the energy, please?"
I'm that annoying bastard.
I've just opened my eyes.
Bounds into the room.
And then this morning he said, "Look, it's 10:15. I have said that I wanted to do the podcast at 10, so I've had to shower, put my hair up in a donut bun, put some clothes on and come downstairs."
It's not like I was jumping up and down on the bed saying it. I was giving you a cuddle at the time and whispering gently into your ear in a loving fashion, saying a very kind of no
the way
pressure.
you said it was, "I'm never going to pressure you, babe. I'm never going to push you to doing something. But I do want to record this podcast in 15 minutes because I have a very busy day." And I'm like, "All right."
No, I do appreciate you dragging yourself out of bed for this.
We have very different time scales for things.
We do, though, don't we? It's interesting.
You work best, sort of, you get up at 6 a.m. and you work through to probably about 6 p.m. I work best somewhere between 10 and 2.
Yeah, but you have a very intense work ethic during that period.
Yeah. But to be fair, after 3 p.m, nothing happens.
And also, to be fair, you get as much done in those 4 hours as I get done in like 12 hours, so, which is a constant source of frustration for me.
Yeah,
because
I work much quicker than you.
Yeah, but I guess I've just got to accept
I tell you what
that.
it is. I think I know what it is. It's because when I start something, I'll start and then I'll stop when it's done. You'll start something, you'll go make a cup of tea.
I will, yes.
You'll go get a biscuit, you'll come in, you'll have a look at something, you'll look at TikTok, you'll do something else. I'm like, just work, and then you'll only have to work 4 hours a day like I do.
Okay, well, I've started to change my routine slightly because I worked out that a to-do list wasn't doing it for me. It wasn't getting it done.
No.
And I've come up with, completely by accident, not a to-do list, but a to-done list.
This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
I think this is genius because it works for me for some reason. I will not write down what I want to do that day. I'll simply start doing things and write down what I've done.
Okay, I have a question to put to you.
Go on.
Is it not just more satisfying because it's a list of stuff you've already done rather than a list of stuff that you're about to do?
Absolutely. I'm still working out what's so great about it, by the way, so I don't have a definitive answer for you. But the thing is, so I see I've done that. And then I'm like, that's great. I can do more. You know, I feel motivated. If you look at your big list of to do, it can be demotivating. Yeah,
I disagree.
See, we work very differently.
You've seen me. I will write a list of stuff. Right, this is what I've got to do today. And the next time you'll come into the kitchen, it's all ticked off. It's done.
Well, I know. I wonder where I've been for days. But I don't work that way. I look at a list of things to do, and they inevitably include things that I don't want to do.
Yes, that's a list. That's what happens.
But there's that book, isn't there, called Eat That Frog?
I don't wish to eat the frog. I'm vegetarian.
But it's like a Mark Twain thing. Who said if every morning you had to eat a live frog, then all the other things that you've been putting off wouldn't seem quite so bad. And so it's about doing the thing that is the thing you know you're going to put off. Yeah.
I would still, I think, rather eat a frog than like clean the bathroom. I'll be honest.
Should the book be called Clean That Bathroom?
I hate cleaning of any kind.
Yeah, me too. Well, I think that's where we are united.
Yes, but we don't. We have a lovely cleaner. This is why.
Yes,
so
she is lovely. Also, I do like washing up though.
you do, but you only like it so you can put your hands in the hot water.
That is correct.
It's like you're giving yourself a little hand bath.
Again, I spend a lot of time standing there, looking at the washing up with my hands in warm water,
and
talking
we wonder
to you.
why I get stuff done, and this is why I can sleep longer.
I'm easily distracted.
Anyway, this is not what this podcast is about.
Talking about being easily distracted. It's episode 24.
Wow.
So, in honour of that, we're gonna do this podcast in real time.
As opposed to what?
Do you get that reference?
No.
Oh, okay. That was an old person's reference. The show 24, Jack Bauer.
I never watched it.
Oh, okay. It was revolutionary at the time because it was 24 episodes of an hour long, and
yes.
it was just in
that
real
day,
time,
wasn't it? Yeah. And then the next series was the next day, and it's very clever, very good, very good.
It was very well worked out. Although after a while, you're like, oh, can we just have, do we have to see? Oh, you never see him go to the toilet. Like, is he like holding it for 24 hours?
But that's like in films. You never see him just sitting down and like just having something to eat or just watching some TV, do you?
Yeah, pause for some food.
Yeah. I mean, if it was me, I'd get very hungry on these adventures.
Yeah, I think you're very right. You're not wrong.
Anyway,
here we are. Here we are.
Christ.
Still 6.5 minutes in, and still haven't even mentioned the topic of this.
Everyone who started listening to this is gone. They're like, nah,
yeah,
nothing.
Yeah. So, but you probably know what the topic's about because you've looked at the title of it before you clicked on it. It is.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Yeah, which I quite like that title. It's quite good. But it's about because we have both done TED Talks or TEDx Talks, I suppose.
People don't know the difference.
Well, I'm not sure I do still, but which I think is quite unusual that we got both of us having had that particular experience.
Well, we are, we're a married couple. We're both TEDx speakers. We're both #1 best-selling authors.
I mean, it's just let's just talk about how great we are for an hour.
We're amazing. I don't know many other sort of husband and wife couples that are, up there with, Beyonce and Jay-Z and Victoria and David Beckham.
Amazing.
Tim and Britt Box.
I think you're in the same breath they get mentioned. Yeah. But no, because
Richard and Judy Madley.
I mean,
she's Judy Finnegan, wasn't she?
Oh yeah, there you go. But they were married, so
yes.
There you go. But I think we've talked about doing this one since we started the podcast.
Yeah, it was on
one
the
of
list,
those when we thought, but what could we talk about over weeks? And that was one of the first ones on the list. Was like, well, that experience of us doing our TED Talks, we both had quite an intense and interesting experience.
A stressful, breakdown-inducing journey.
Yeah, well, you could argue it's one of the most stressful things we've ever had to do in terms of rising to a challenge. And I know that we've all been through different things, but the actual, the intensity of that moment is quite.
No. My mother died at 16. I was left completely on my own, had to drop out of school, had to pay my own bills, had to pave my own way. My appendix exploded and I got septicemia. What else has happened? Lots of other. I was in a car accident. This is still up there as just one of the most stressful things I've ever done in my life ever. I had someone message me. This was it. I think I'd said it. I feel like I'm getting deja vu. I feel like I've said this on the podcast, but someone said, thank you for coming to my TED Talk. And I said, I will forever be upset with myself that I didn't say that at the end because it's quite a colloquial sentence that people say after they've had a rant about something. And I didn't say that. I just shuffled off awkwardly. And she messaged me and said, well, there's always the next one. And I was like, never again. People who do multiple TED Talks, like, what's wrong with you?
Well, also, it's just it's a really weird thing to do. I mean, that's maybe weird is a bit too a sort of reductive term, but
we should explain the circumstances. I know we're going to go into it because I've had people be completely what's the word, not quite knowing exactly what entails it and not knowing why I was so stressed about it.
Like ignorant of the process.
Thinking you'd have notes, thinking you'd have teleprompters, this, that, and the other one. So I want to go into that.
Well, let's just say what it is then. Let's start by saying what is a TED Talk, because obviously not everyone will know. So hang on, let me see if I can describe it as best I can.
You mean you don't have a Wikipedia version to hand?
I don't. I haven't looked at it on Wikipedia. Okay, we were reading a book on the beach in Mallorca.
You were.
I was, and I think you had a look at it after me. But it was about how to do a TED Talk.
Yeah.
And even all those years, how many years ago was this?
About 7.
Yeah, even all those years ago, we knew a TED Talk was one of those aspirational things for public speakers to do.
Yeah, so it is literally, it's like the pinnacle of public speaking, really. Everyone from Barack Obama has done a TED Talk.
Yeah.
Other people that I've now forgotten all of their names have done TED Talks.
So many. Tony Robbins.
Yeah, if you just search TED Talks in YouTube, you'll be lost for days.
Yeah.
And they all get uploaded including ours,
Yeah.
to the TED
YouTube channel,
to the TED YouTube channel, and that's where people can see them. And it's basically a speaker in an auditorium of people who delivers a speech on something, an idea worth spreading.
We used to think it was an idea worth sharing.
I don't know where we got that from, but it's just like an idea, and that was kind of it. It was each person. So one of my favourite TED Talks is by Doughty, who's a funeral director in Los Angeles. I'm obsessed with her. I'm one of her deathlings, which is you know, and it's all about kind of being a bit more death positive in a way. That's not it to say, you know, oh, I'm positive about dying one day, because I'm actually terrified. It's one of my big fears. But it's more about the understanding that, you know, the dead are nothing to be afraid of, essentially, because you know, I don't know if I've said it on the podcast before, but one of my big aspirations in life is to be a funeral director. I have done work experience in funeral directors. I've gone on funerals, I've been in the morgue, I've done all stuff like that, and I really want to do it, but I know now is not the right time in my life to do it. It's something I'm going to come back to. Anyway, her TED Talk was just incredible, and she started it in such an amazing way, wasn't it? You always remember the first dead body you shave.
Yeah, so it was amazing opening line.
And then she kind of circled back around to that at the end, and that's kind of where I got the idea for mine. But yeah, so I watched hers, and we've watched a lot of them over the years, and both knew, because we were public speakers. Obviously, I was doing a lot more public speaking then than I do now. We knew that's what we wanted to do.
Yeah, I totally agree. And we used to be sitting on the sofa of an evening, just looking at the TED channel on YouTube, just looking at different talks, because they're absolutely fascinating. You will always find something that you'll just find amazing and eye opening. And a lot of people's education these days comes from TED Talks, because it's sort of pioneer thinking. It's ideas that maybe aren't out there, or certainly not easily accessible, and people get invited to do them because they've got something to say.
There's a great one of a woman who left the Westboro Baptist Church.
Oh yeah, that is amazing.
Yeah, there's a great one of that, and there's another one of a woman who'd also left a different kind of a cult. And
there's one by a mother of one of the Columbine shooters.
Yes.
Yeah, which is amazing.
Yeah.
There's one by who was the lady who was associated with Bill Clinton?
Monica Lewinsky.
She did
Her
one.
one's great.
Yeah, about being shamed.
Yeah,
and it was just amazing. And also one of my favourite authors, Johan Hari, has done a couple of TED Talks. One about addictions, one about depression. And they're amazing. So yeah, if you don't know TED Talks, just Google them. Find the YouTube channel.
And we thought this would be a really good thing to talk about in the podcast, because a lot of them circle around mental health and circle around emotional well-being and circle around all those sorts of things. So considering, I have spent most of my life talking about mental health, and Tim's career is obviously intertwined in mental health, we both knew we would be able to give good TED Talks.
Well, this is where we got to start, isn't it? Why did we want to do a TED Talk? And okay, we've sort of covered that thing. Well, it's one of those. It's like it's on my bucket list. It was to do. It was what I'd set it myself as an ambition, and I'd also sort of tried to set some sort of time limit on it in terms of how I would get there. But as it turned out, the opportunity arose a lot earlier. But also, I had something I wanted to say. And it didn't really crystallise exactly what I wanted my message to be until I really got down and deep into the process of writing my TED Talk.
Yes.
So, and it's like you say, we did feel like it wasn't just, I'd like to do a TED Talk. What should I do it about?
No, and oh God, we can talk about that, about people who go into TED Talks and go, right, I've got a TED Talk. What shall I write about? And it's like, no, we had an actual message that we wanted to get across. I wanted to get across a message of survival, essentially, and because I was inspired by all the ones I'd watched about the people leaving cults and stuff like that, and about how they got through the other side of it. And I will say, I mean, I'll talk about this more as we go on, but when I applied for and wrote my TED Talk, I was in a very different place mentally than I maybe have been since, but I don't think that invalidates my message of overcoming a hard time in your life.
Yeah, I think you had this thought for a while that you were worried that where you had experienced depression since then, you were worried it invalidated the message of the talk. And I don't think it does at all, because your talk is very much a personal story.
Yes.
It's not like you're discussing general principles or ideas or scientific research or anything like that. What you're talking about is, this is what I went through, this is how I got the other side of that. And these are the thoughts that help me day to day. Now, that doesn't in any way mean we're not going to get low in the future. Other stuff isn't going to happen to us that challenges us. You know, none of us are going to then just skip merrily into the sunset.
No.
You know, it doesn't work like that. You don't get to the end of the movie and everything's all right after that.
No.
There are always going to be challenges, and
there's always going to be a post-credit scene.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes, Marvel reference.
But it's like when I did my talk, I spoke about how baking got me out of a depressive period in my life, which it absolutely did, you know. But nowadays, when I'm feeling exceptionally low, baking isn't going to help me, because it's part of my job. It's completely different now. Like the person that I was back then, when I was low, when I was down, I turned on the oven, I picked up a mixing bowl. Now, when I'm like, that is the last thing I want to do. You know, it's baking isn't the stress reliever for me that it was back then. That doesn't mean, though, that I don't think that baking can be an incredibly helpful and useful tool for a lot of people.
This is the point. And also, I don't think your message pivoted around, and then I found baking. Hey, find baking, everyone. Your talk was about finding something that lifts you out of the darkness, that you realise gives you the idea that, you know what, there is a future beyond here. And this is the thing. So, you know, to bring it back on topic, that's why we wanted to do the talk, because we felt we had something to say that was an idea worth spreading.
Sharing. You know? Idea worth sharing sounds better. Idea worth spreading sounds like it's butter or something.
Or something else.
Exactly that.
Yes.
Yeah. Idea worth, I don't know. An idea.
So an idea.
An idea.
Here it is.
I had an idea.
Do with it what you will. But okay, so this sort of very, very conveniently leads me on to the next thing I want to talk about, which was the whole selection process. Because we did not do our talks on the same year, did we?
We did not. And we only really, because obviously we said that we wanted to do them, but it was only when a friend of ours, Amy McManus, had done one in 1 year, that it was a local one. It was Folkestone, wasn't it?
Yeah. So here's the thing: you were introduced to it by Amy because she applied and was accepted the first year.
Did I apply the first year? I think I did.
Yeah, I think we both did.
Yeah.
Because we didn't hear about it through Amy.
No.
We heard about it through our mate Loz.
Yes.
Laura Ash.
It was Laura Ash.
Yeah, because she said, look, Tim, I know you were talking about you wanted to do a TED talk, because obviously you chat about things with friends, don't you?
Yeah, and they live in Folkestone.
Yeah, and I'd mentioned it at some point, and then she noticed, oh, wow, they now have a TEDx event.
A licence in Folkestone,
Folkestone. And so we applied. We both applied to talk there, because that's the way they were doing it. They were like, put your submissions in, put your proposals in.
Yes.
And we'll look at them and we'll select our favourite 10 to be this year's TEDx event.
And I am not surprised I was not chosen. My paragraph was like, well, I'd quite like to do it because I think I have something nice to say. And it was really rubbish.
It's almost like applying for a job, because you've got to put down what you think is good about what you've got to say.
That's the thing, I've not applied for a job in over a decade, so I was like, please choose me, thank you.
Oh, I'm not sure I've ever applied for a job.
No, you've never had a real job. We've discussed this.
I mean, I work.
You've never had like a job. Like, I talk about things when I've had a manager or like worked in an office, because I've probably done about 30 jobs in my lifetime. It's ridiculous. Considering I've been self-employed for the last decade and I've still done about 30 jobs and I'm only 33, doesn't quite make any sense.
Wow.
I flitted around a lot. But you're like, can't relate.
Well, okay, I have done one job. I used to check in lorries when they were building the M20.
When you were 16, for about a week.
Yeah, well, it was 8 weeks actually, and I used the money to buy a drum machine.
Well
there
done.
We go.
Congratulations. Yeah, so Loz said they're going to do it, because the thing with TED events tend to be in big cities. London, Dubai, forgotten every other city in the world. New York, this kind of thing. TEDx events are more local, as in smaller theatres, but it doesn't really matter, because they all still get uploaded to the TEDx YouTube channel.
That's it. You're still on the red dot. You're still standing in
Still
front of the logo.
standing on the red dot. You're still doing that. You still get your picture with the big TED letters behind you, which, I'll be honest, was a main motivator for me.
You know what? I remember thinking, at least I'll have that picture of me with the TED logo.
With the TED
on
logo.
It was.
I'll post that when we put the podcast up. So there was that. So we applied. We both got rejected the first year,
Yeah.
but our friend Amy McManus got accepted.
Yeah.
And then it was only when we watched that year's round of talks. We didn't go to the event. We were on holiday, if I remember rightly.
That's right. Yeah. We were nice.
Which is, you know, a pretty good thing, I suppose. And then when we got back, we watched them all on YouTube, because
Yeah.
it takes weeks from your event to when they go up on YouTube, which we'll talk about as well. It takes quite a few weeks. We watched them all, and we both went, next year.
Yeah, yeah.
We want to do this next year.
Well, this is the thing. I've seen some people who have applied and they've got rejected, and that's it. They don't apply again, because it's almost like I don't know whether they feel it's a harsh judgment. I know I felt. I was quite disappointed. I don't think at the time you were as gung ho about it as I was. I really wanted to do it, and I was quite disappointed to get the rejection letter. But at the same time, it didn't make me think, oh, maybe it isn't for me then.
Yeah.
It made me think, well, you know what? That's going to be every year. So what I've got to do is refine my message, work out what wasn't acceptable about that last time, and then put it right when I put in for it next time.
Meanwhile, I was not surprised I got rejected. I was not surprised in the slightest.
Well, I'm not saying you half-assed your application.
I didn't half-ass it. I just didn't know how best to put, I've had a really terrible life and I'm still alive.
Yeah. Well, I think So I think it was the second year when the theme was announced to be courage, and you instantly resonated with that, because you wanted to talk about what ended up being the title of your talk, the courage to continue.
Yes.
And that was, I think, what made you think, right? Yeah, this is right for me. Now I know how to put down in terms of relating to the theme of the talks, you know.
So the second year comes around. So the first year was 2017. The second year was 2018. And again, we both applied. Yeah. And then after we applied, very soon after, because I think they had all been, so basically when you apply, you put in a text written thing on what you want, but then you also had to send a minute video, which you didn't have to do in the first year. You had to send a minute video explaining what you wanted to talk about. Yeah. And I think this was just to see who could actually speak. And I know that sounds really silly, but I think that's what it was. Now, I had to this day, I maintain I missed that part of the application. So I sent in the text one, and I just sent it off, and I let it at that. And I think that they had already chosen quite a lot of the people by the time I got my application in, to be honest. And then I got an email straight back that basically said, look, we really, really like your idea, because I'd worded it much better this time. We really like your idea, but we need the video element of it. Yeah. And that was on a Friday, and then I don't really do anything on the weekend when it comes to emails. So I just kind of left it. And I'll be honest, I was just really nervous at that point, because I was like, oh God, does that, you know, the realization of, oh God, I might actually get this had sunk in, because I had just resigned myself to, I'm never getting this. I don't have to worry about it. I can just say I've applied and that's that. And then when they came back saying they wanted the video element of it, I was like, okay, I'll do that in a bit. I
remember a conversation we had. You were sitting on the sofa and I was standing there next to the sofa. I don't know whether it was on my way somewhere. And you were like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to bother doing it. And I knew you really wanted to do this. And I was like, no, that's not you not bothering. That's you being afraid of getting rejected again. Yeah, or worse, getting accepted.
I was more scared of getting accepted than I was of getting rejected. I was terrified. And then it also, you know, crossed my mind, oh, what if one of us gets accepted and the other doesn't? And I was worried about that as well. So I filmed the video, and I've got the best outtake from this 1 minute video, and I will put it on my stories because it's hilarious. So I've got the best outtake of that. And I sent the video in, and a couple of hours after I sent the video in, I got a message saying, we'd love to have you as one of the speakers this year. We're actually doing a speaker meetup, and it was the following day.
That's right, it was, yes.
It was the following day. Are you free to come? So I think they'd chosen everyone. I think they really liked my idea, but it was just hinging on whether I'd sent in this video or not. So I did, but then obviously, because they said, right, we've basically chosen everyone, and you hadn't said anything to me.
Yes, this is how I found out I had not been accepted, because you were told to be at the event tomorrow and I'd heard nothing.
Yeah, they didn't send out the rejection letters until slightly after
and I think in the end I found it in my junk email. It was one of those really like...
But I felt really worried, because obviously we've got, excuse me, we've got a very stable marriage. You know, we're very supportive of each other. We're always there for each other. But I was worried because I knew that this has been something you'd wanted for ages. And it's been something that I'd wanted for a shorter time, I suppose. And I was worried that you would be upset that I was chosen and you weren't.
Well, I wasn't happy about it, I'm going to be honest. But no, to be fair, it wasn't... I was just really pleased that one of us got accepted, because I'm very much, you know this, I'm very much that your success is my success is your success. I don't see a distinction between you or I. It's us, you know. Yeah. So when you got accepted, I was really pleased about that. And the thing that upset me was that you were so tentative about telling me that I was like, what do you think I'm going to do? Say, oh, well, good for you then. Screw you.
Well, I
hope you have fun trying to get there without a driver.
I just know how it would have been the other way round.
Yes, I think we both know how it would have been the other way round.
So anyway,
which we won't dwell on.
Won't dwell. So that's 2018. That was my selection process, and that's how I got in. Yeah. But you got in.
Well, my selection process began that day after you got approved. Yes. When we went to the event, because I had to drive you there. So I'm just this guy who's been rejected, turning up saying, "Hey guys, how's it going?"
And they're like, "Does he know? Yeah. Does he know he's not a speaker?"
He looks familiar. He looks like one of those ones we put in the bin. But so I felt really awkward because I'm like, "Don't worry, I'm not here. Honestly, I'm not." You know, and it was all that sort of thing. But I just found it so exciting.
You were really funny. You were like the unpaid intern. You were like, "Geez, coffees? Is everyone all right?"
Absolutely. I was like, "Can I make myself useful at all?" Right? Because I just, so I got to be there for all of your preparation, and that just got me more excited about doing it because I loved the atmosphere. Yeah. And I don't know anyone.
And you were like, "They can't turn me down 3 times in a row."
Well, I used it, I think, to get to know everyone. Yeah. And my mission, if you like, if I had a mission except to just drive you to all the events, was to listen.
Yes, to do what's coming along.
Yeah, and just pay attention to what I was being told about the sort of talks that they wanted to have representing TEDx Folkestone. Yes. And that really helped me to understand where I'd gone wrong in my application. And I don't know, I think...
Because what we should say as well is that every single talk has to be approved by TED. So it all has to be... So when you say about what kind of talks they wanted, it's still the talks that we wanted to give.
Well, they have very rigid guidelines, and the licensee has to abide by that, because they don't... TED themselves, as in the great god TED... They don't see the talks until they're filmed and finished. But if they have, like, one of the talks they have to reject, as in we can't put that on our platform because it breaks our guidelines, then it puts the licensee at risk. So Liu Batchelor, who is amazing, who was the licensee, I think she's standing down this year actually. She is, yeah. And she was awesome, and she was very... not strict, but she really followed the guidelines and made sure that the event was sort of really watertight in terms of it being a TED event. Yes. And I spoke with her loads of times whilst you were going through your preparation process, just picking her brains really about, what she's looking for when the team are sitting down to look at the applications. What do you and if I'm honest, the way that I amended my message based on that information vastly improved my talk eventually. It really helped me crystallize what I wanted to talk about, and it's helped me actually crystallize my message as a whole, because you kind of get out of your little bubble a little bit, and you see the perspective of other people who are receiving this message for the first time, and it just helped me have more clarity about what I was talking about. But yeah, I didn't get selected until the 3rd year, and
2019 that is now, isn't it?
Yeah, and by then I feel, look, there's no doubt there was an advantage in the fact that I'd been around a lot of the organisers in your process, and they knew me and they knew what I did, and they probably had an inside track on my message. You know what I mean? So when my face comes up on the little video application, they're like, "Oh, we know Tim, so we kind of he's somebody we relate to."
Yeah, and I think that helped you because obviously one of the things we talk about, their guidelines. So I didn't have this trouble with mine because mine was a personal story about depression. Simple as that, really. At the bones of it, that's what my talk was. But the rules that they have are things around talking about the mind, talking about subconscious, talking about things like that. So if it was just a cold application they'd got in, they don't know, if you're going to turn up in like beads and a dream catcher, or you're going to turn up and
Okay, I think that was the problem with my first application in particular. I talked about being a hypnotherapist. Yes. And there's 3 basic rules for TED. No politics, no religion, no pseudoscience.
Woo-woo.
No, woo-woo. Well, nothing that you can't substantiate scientifically.
Yes.
So that was the point there. That I remember the first conversation on the phone with Leo back in the day, and she was like, "Okay, you mentioned hypnosis a couple of times in what you want to talk about.
Yeah.
I can tell you now, Ted won't allow that sort of talk. You know,
Darren Brown's done TED Talks, hasn't he?
yeah, but he doesn't. He's done it more based on." Let me do a magic trick for you. Which is, to be fair, some of the TED Talks are kind of like, you think, how did they get
through? Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So that was very much. And when I was going through the actual formal selection process, like when they announced, okay, TEDx 2019 is going to be happening, come and do our pitch evenings.
Which I was not a judge, but what was it? I was like an advisor.
Yeah, like an expert opinion. So it was like an X Factor thing, wasn't it? Where you give your minute-long pitch or something, and then the panel tells you what they think of it.
And I was on the panel, and like you stood up, and I was like, I like this man. He's very attractive. Is he single? You know,
you're like, instantly you can tell this guy knows what he's talking about.
Yeah. One guy stood up, and I can't remember the exact what he was saying, but I know it was like very political. And I looked at you because I was sitting on like this selector's sofa, and you were a few seats behind me, and I remember looking at you and just being like,
oh yeah, I know what you mean, because we knew it by then, didn't we?
Yeah.
We were 2 years in, and we were like, he ain't getting through, is he? But and also but those pitch nights, I saw a couple of pitches, and I'm like, I really want to hear that talk. Yes. That sounds awesome.
There was one about the hero's journey, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it was amazing. I was like, oh God, I really want you to get the talk, because I want to hear that talk, you know?
Yeah.
And and it was amazing. But I went to everything, and I made my presence felt, and I listened to the advice of the people that were advising us.
So yeah,
including your advice, I think I even listened to, didn't I?
Yes, I went through your talk a couple of times.
Yeah.
So if I go with mine first,
yeah.
So preparing the talk, isn't it? Really. So what happens is you've got this idea, you've got this paragraph, and then you have to write a talk about it. Now, here's the thing you may not know about TED Talks. So you have between. Well, actually, there's no minimum, is there? But it's a maximum of 18 minutes.
Yeah.
You cannot go over the 18-minute mark.
I think I'm at 3 seconds over.
I'm surprised I let yours on. Yeah, I went for a sensible 13 minutes, I think was what mine was. I was like, 18? I'm not talking for 18 minutes. I don't need to talk 20 minutes.
Can I just say it's the only sensible 13 minutes you've ever spoken?
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And what I did was I sat down and I wrote it. Now, here's where I feel I had an advantage to toot my own horn. I'm a good writer.
Yeah, okay.
So
you are tooting your own horn, yes, I like it.
I am a good writer. you know I am.
I know.
And I knew, so everyone's got their own different processes. The thing that scared me the most about giving a TED Talk is that you, for the most part, and I say for the most part, and I say that pointedly, because I've seen some talks where they have them in their hands, but
which
you are not allowed. You are not allowed notes.
No.
You are not allowed a teleprompter.
Nope.
You're not allowed little cards.
No.
You're not allowed anything. You just have to go out there and give your talk. And here's the terrifying bit. You have one go at it.
Yeah.
You have one shot to get it done, to get your video, and that's it. You know, you have a rehearsal, and you can rehearse as many times as you want. You have an actual dress rehearsal, but on the day you have one go.
Yeah.
If you fuck it up,
well, that's it. Yeah, it will be immortalised in fuck-uppery.
Now, here's the thing. Like, obviously, I've done West End theatre before, so I understand.
I mean, one day we'll have a podcast episode where you don't mention that.
Never. So you know, so I know I know this sort of on the night thing, and performing and speaking doesn't frighten me, not one bit. Okay. But there's a big difference between learning a script of dialogue between people where you can pick up other cues from other people's sentences and essentially a 13-minute monologue.
Yeah. Well, this is
what it is.
This is the thing that challenged me. As you know, I'm used to public speaking.
Yes.
But I'm not used to learning an 18-minute script that I have to recite word for word.
No. Now, a few of the people had different ways of doing it. Some people had techniques of just knowing the 5 points they wanted to say and then letting themselves feel around that. Yeah. I didn't want to do that. That freaked me out because I also know that if I just let myself think about things, and I are. Now, I'm actually a lot better at this than I used to be because of TED. I used to, when I did public speaking, and a lot, and now I don't do that so much anymore because of just the techniques I learned through doing the TED Talk. So I knew I wanted mine to be the exact same script every time I said it. That was the only way I was going to do it. That's the only way I was going to learn it.
Yeah.
So I wrote my whole thing, and then I looked over it and I was like, yep, this is the one. This is the talk I'm going to give.
Yeah.
And
Also,
no one's going to change my mind on it.
You wrote, well, this is the thing. TEDx Folkestone are a brilliant organisation because not all TEDx events are the same, but they offer you loads of support. They'll review script with you. They'll have somebody there just to listen to you recite it and give feedback. And there's loads of events in preparation as well. Not as much your year as my year,
but steps out with your year.
But still so much so that it was a stark contrast to other TEDx events that are in this part of the country.
Yes.
Yeah, and
where they just accept you and then you turn up on the day.
Yeah,
that's it really.
And most people, certainly everybody in my cohort, absolutely rewrote their talk a load of times. I think half of the people I was with rewrote it the night before, as in the final, like, I've changed that last act, I've changed that last paragraph.
That makes me feel sick. That makes me feel physically sick.
But your talk was written from week one.
Yes.
Like almost like 6 months out, you had your talk written and all you were doing then was learning it.
Well, it wasn't quite that long. So my talk was on the 23rd of June. I think it was a few days before my birthday. It was 23rd of June. And I had finalised what I was writing by mid-May.
Oh, okay.
No, it wasn't quite that long. No, and then I had 6 weeks of learning it.
Yeah.
And the reason I did that is because there was someone in my year who had their talk, was happy with their talk, and then kept getting feedback about changing bits.
Yeah.
So when we all met up, and I hadn't even learned a single iota of mine yet, but I knew this is what I'm going to learn, kind of thing. One of these people in my year was having a really bad time with it because they were changing it every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Whereas I had decided, so we all gave our talks, and then there was a little bit of feedback here and there. Here's what you could change. Here's what you couldn't change. And I'll be honest, I rejected all of it because I was like, no. This is my talk.
Yeah.
I'm happy with it. This is the talk I'm giving.
As you say, I mean, just to contextualise the old "I'm really good at writing" comment, you knew how to construct a kind of circular talk that had a beginning, a middle, and an end, and had themes that return as well. And I think that was the point. There was that your research, your rewriting had happened before you'd written it. If you know what I mean.
In my head,
exactly.
Yeah. So I knew what I was going to do, and I knew I just had to remember it. And everyone's got different strategies.
Yeah.
I went with a strategy I used when I was at theatre school, which was literally the end of one paragraph, link that word somehow to the start of the next paragraph. And I've got that, me, I've got that brain that I can just remember things word for word for word for word. You know that every time we go to the Odeon cinema and I say the preamble bit.
Yes, as the guy's saying it every single time.
Hello. So that's how I remembered it. I know you did it slightly differently maybe, and I know a lot of people do different, but that was my process. So I wrote the script and then I just spent 6 weeks remembering it, and I promise you, the minute I stepped off that stage, I think the actual structure of it and the learning of it just out of my mind completely. Gone.
That's it, never again to be remembered.
Never again to be repeated. So that was my process. What about you?
Well, I think a similar thing, but I noticed in your year that the ones who had, so Sophie, your mate Sophie, our mate Sophie, I've got in trouble for calling people your mate, haven't I? Last week I referred to your mate Gemma,
who I got a message from saying, has Tim never met me then?
I've been made to feel bad about that for a week, I can tell you.
Also, we're going to her wedding in a couple of weeks.
All right. Yes, she's my friend as well now, but I've always think her as your friend. Anyway.
You're going to get in trouble again. She's going to tell you off.
Just to reference it again. Anyway, so Sophie, when she did who's in your year.
Yes.
In your year, like
in
school.
School, I know. Felt a bit like that.
In her talk, she did, like, she had that bullet point thing where she had paragraphs where she would cover certain topics, but she didn't have a word for word script.
No.
And she would move around the dot, and she'd use spatial anchoring. She'd remember if she knew where she was on the dot, she knew what paragraph she was on, and she would move each time. And I quite liked that. But I did notice that there were a couple of people that did it that way, and some of them were coming off saying, I wasn't quite happy with how I said this bit or that paragraph. I've said that better previously. And I thought to myself, right, as much as I prefer to have a certain amount of ad-lib, a certain amount of interaction with audience, that sort of thing, a certain amount of responding to the room or where my thought process is going from one moment to the next, I think I would feel better doing it the way you did it, knowing every single word, so that I know if I just remember this, then I will have the best talk I can give.
This is it, because when you ad-lib, you forget stuff.
Yeah.
You know, there's a reason that, you know, Shakespeare isn't ad-libbed. It's not based on audience participation. I went out there to perform Hamlet, and Hamlet I shall perform.
Well, exactly. Yeah, that's a very good analogy, actually.
With a skull.
But that's exactly it. And it's like, the reason for doing this is to have this work immortalized.
Yes,
you know, it's
absolutely.
on the internet now. There is my TED talk, you know.
Yes.
And if you're just going to make up bits as you go, and I'm not saying that they made up bits, but if there is a danger that you might not articulate your point quite as clearly as you did in the dress rehearsal, for example, then that adds another lot of pressure to you.
Yeah.
It's not just about remembering the words now, it's about having clarity in your process at that moment in front of that audience.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to do that. So as much as it was counterintuitive to me to learn it word for word, that's what I did.
Yeah.
And I don't think I did it as quickly as you, because you got that bloomin' brain of yours.
So what is it? It's like, it's kind of like, what's the word? It's not, I have got a bit of a photographic memory, because I can walk into a room and tell you instantly when something's changed.
Can actually, yeah.
But I've got that with auditory things.
Yeah.
I can't remember what that's like.
But I did the same as you, linking paragraphs.
Yes.
Because I kind of realised that it's like a song, you know.
Yeah.
When you're singing a song, you know what line's coming next, because the line before prompts you.
Yeah.
And I recognised that as I was learning it, I was almost remembering my thought process in coming up with that next line.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? You're in that moment. And then it's only the paragraphs where you make a slight jump now to the next topic, where you need to in some way bind those together.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. But again, a lot of it, I think, was our rehearsing process, where we're just going through it.
Over and over and over and over and over and over again. Like, I remember doing it to the teddy bears.
Yeah.
You know, I can remember. So I remember once I was getting a train. This was when I was doing the writing college course in Canterbury.
Yeah.
And I was on the train platform, and there was about 14 minutes till my train. I was the only one on the platform, by the way. It was in the middle of the morning, like nobody else was there. And I looked mental, but I mumbled through my entire talk.
Yeah.
On that platform before the train got there, because I, you know, without any thing in my hand, because I needed to just keep it in my head. That was the thing that scared me the most, that I would remember it. Because this is the thing, I don't get stage fright. I'm not really scared about going up on stage. Like, I'm fine with that. My worry was that I would go out there and completely forget my script.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you look, there's a picture of me, right? Where I go out on the stage and I stand on that red dot and I look up and I see you, I can just about see you, and I smile at you, and then there's this sudden realisation that I'm like, I can't remember, what's my first line? What's my first line? And there's just this long pause, but then I used it to dramatic effect, and I did the talk.
No, I styled it out.
And the only thing that threw me off is, obviously, every time I just said it in rehearsal, I'd kind of said it to an empty room, or to people who were being quiet because they were doing their own stuff, whatever. There was one thing I did where I got a laugh,
and it threw
where
you.
I wasn't expecting to get a laugh.
Yeah.
And I kind of was like, no, shut up.
You put me off.
This isn't audience participation, be quiet.
Yeah, I know, I've got that feeling.
But but then I carried on.
Yeah, yeah. But I think as well, the whole getting ready, the preparation process, rehearsing wise, how many times did you say it to yourself on the day of the event?
Oh my God. So many. Like, I can't. So before each of our talks as well, we were so the whole day was split up into like 3 or 4 sections, and then for your section, where there was like 3 or 4 speakers, you would be backstage, so you weren't, you know, so you didn't have to, like, you know, go through when someone else was talking, so we would go through on the breaks. So we were all in like a holding cell, if you will. It was like me, it was me, who was it, Rupert, I can't remember. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. It was like
it Silas?
Silas, yes. Yeah. And then right before your own talk, you would go in a little room by yourself.
Yeah.
Was how we did it. So I was in this little room by myself, and because Rupert was before me, wasn't he? And while he was giving his talk, I did mine twice in the mirror to myself, with my little mic on, with everything on, just blocking out the world and just giving the talk in the mirror.
So I remember thinking, you know what, there's going to be a time when I want to stop saying this now. And every time I went to go through it again, I was like, oh God, I've got to say it again now. And yet on the day, I didn't stop. If I thought, well, hang on, I've got 20 minutes, I can do it again in my mind before we go. I absolutely did it, because I thought, just get it in there so that it's almost like tedious in your brain now.
I will say, if we were out on stage and either of us had forgotten something, that we give a copy of the script to Ted, and it was Caroline, wasn't it? She was sitting in the front row with a binder, and she could prompt.
Yeah. So I had one moment where I was on the cusp of getting a prompt.
Really?
Because I stopped, and I'm not averse to pausing for dramatic effect if I said something that I feel, in a kind of, and stop and think about that for a moment. Sort of thing. But I did a pause that made no earthly sense to be there at all. It was like in the middle of a really benign... And it was 2 or 3 seconds. It was like a second or two longer than it should have been. As I thought, what the hell is the next line that I'm meant to be saying? And I didn't want to get a prompt because I'd seen a couple of people in your year get a prompt, and I was like, oh, I hope I don't.
Not me. I'd like to point out.
No, you were word for word, baby. But and it was just, I just. And I was there, and I went up to Hax, who was editing the video, who was filming it, and I said, you're going to notice when you edit this together, there seems to be a pause for no reason. Don't think I'm being dramatic there. You can cut that out if you want. And I think he did. He chopped out the second or two pause.
Brilliant.
So that the people watching the video aren't as confused as the people in the room were by it. But no, and I think, what was I going to say as well? I forgot. There was something that you said, and I'm like, oh, I want to mention that. No, it's gone. But I want to talk about the dress rehearsal anyway.
Yes. Oh, what, my meltdown?
Well, was it your meltdown?
Yeah, I had a meltdown.
Oh, you did, didn't you? But I wasn't there. So I'm going on reports. I wasn't there on the day of the dress rehearsal.
Wait, no, I'm talking about when I put my outfit on and I hated it.
Oh my God! Right, okay. Oh, so yeah, the dressing rehearsal, yeah.
So before the day before the dress rehearsal, I put on my dress that I was going to wear, and I absolutely despised how it looked on me. I hated it. If I remember rightly, I took it off and I threw it across the room, and I was like, I'm not wearing that. And I went mental. And then we went out for like 4 hours. We went to like 20 different shops.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Tried loads of dresses, everything, and then I came home and. The dress you see me in on my talk, that was the dress. That was the one
that we got.
Yeah.
Was it the one you started with?
Yeah.
It was, wasn't it? Yeah, that's right. That
was the one I threw across the room.
I've kind of, when you erase a trauma from your actual immediate memory, I feel like that might have been what I did there. You know what? There's times in my life when I haven't been the best partner. I think that day I was awesome. I was an amazing partner that day because you know what? I was just like, where do you need to go, babe? What do you need from me? What do you need? And I was doing all the things that you need to do when someone's having a crisis.
Look, as you know, sometimes anxiety takes the wheel, and there's not a lot I can do about it.
But you looked great on the day anyway. And I think it's just one of those things, though. I think there was a bit of me as well thinking, well, I knew this had happened. I knew it's not. I was buckling up for this. I knew this was going to happen, so that's okay.
Whereas you were like, what combination of shirt, braces, and jeans should I wear?
I believe it was cardigan. I believe that was the first appearance of the cardigan.
Of the cardi.
Yeah, and now the now iconic
Box cardigan.
One of my clients said to me the other day, you know what I think is great about you? You always wear the same thing. And I was like, I beg your pardon. I have different colour cardigans and T-shirts, I'll have you know.
It's completely, no one would be able to tell.
But he was saying, because you eliminate any of the anxiety around choosing an outfit. And I thought, is that why I do it?
That reminds me of the Lego movie when he opens his cupboard and he's just got the same thing.
That is my cupboard. Yeah. I am the Lego guy. Yeah, exactly. But the funny thing is about that is that when we did the so this is jumping on a bit, but when we were on social media doing a live to announce the videos being put up from that year's cohort.
Who this? You this?
This was ages ago.
No, okay.
I mean, this was ages after the event.
Yeah, okay.
And Dan, Sharkman Dan, who did a great talk on sharks, which you should take a look at. We came on before we went live. He was like, so you got the cardigan on? And I was like, no, this isn't the one I was wearing. This is a different cardigan, Dan. I mean, I don't know. Well, anyway.
Honestly, the way that Tim goes from business to casual, honest to God, he just takes off the cardigan. He's like Clark Kent. He's like,
I'm clocking off. There we go.
Cardigan comes off. He's casual, Tim.
Well, put it this way, I was happy with how I looked. I think the thing that I did special, I changed my laces for blue laces
You
to
did,
go with
yes.
my
I
cardigan.
remember you were very pleased about that decision.
I thought it was a gloriously subtle touch.
Also, the blue of your laces was the exact blue of my dress.
Which I wonder if that was by design as well. You always moan that I use the same colours as you.
Yeah, you do.
Whenever we go out for the day.
I'm like, oh, I've put on a purple outfit and now you're wearing purple. Brilliant. Thanks, babe.
I mean, it's what it is we're so in sync, babe, to the point where we colour match without realising it. That's what's going on there. Okay, so where are we? We've learnt the talk, we've rehearsed the talk. Oh, by the way, the extra events for preparing the talk that you didn't get.
Yes.
I mean...
Where you were a tree.
That's it. We had an improvisational session where, and this is amazing, right? That the organisers of TEDx said, right, we'll get in a load of experts. So we had an acting coach about delivery. We had loads of things, and we had somebody come in and do an improvisational session with us where we played improvisational games.
Look, you can talk about you're happy about it now, but I have photographic evidence to prove that you were Mr. Skeptical, did not want to be a tree standing in the corner.
No, this is the thing. It wasn't my proudest moment. And there was a moment where I'm like, I'm about to walk into the middle of this ring of people and say I am a tree. And then mime being a tree. Actually, I think I was an umbrella. I think the tree had already landed there.
Right.
Someone was the rain.
And you were the umbrella.
And I'm the umbrella. Honestly, it's this weird game where anyone can walk in at any time. But if you just stand out in the outside circle for the whole game, everyone's like, are you not participating, Tim? Is it not, are we not, are we taking up your time?
Also, there's a bit of me. I am glad we didn't have this in my year.
You wouldn't have done it.
Well, here's the thing, right? I get involved. I always get involved. I don't mind looking stupid.
Except...
I don't mind looking stupid. I don't mind looking forward. I don't get embarrassed easily.
No, you don't,
I'm this sort of thing. But I'm a bit like, how's this relevant, please?
Yeah, how is this?
So it's not like I wouldn't have done it, but I'm glad I didn't have to.
Well, I tell you what I appreciated about it, though, was that it kind of allowed us to bond as a group, as a group of people.
Yes.
And I quite appreciated that because some of the people in my cohort, I'm really glad I met, because I wouldn't have met them any other way. I remember it was Alex. I can't remember Alex's last name. I can't remember his last name. He did a great talk about how competition can be detrimental to business rather than positive to it. It's a really, really good
talk.
talk.
Good talk.
It's a lot funnier than I've just made it sound as well. But we were talking backstage before we both went out. Yeah, just getting ready in the ready room. And we were just chatting, and we both agreed that the thing about TEDx that you don't realise is going to happen, it puts extra pressure on you, this does as well. But the thing that you don't realise is going to happen is that you're going to meet extraordinary people because you're now in a group with people who are, I hate the expression, but thought leaders. Yeah, people who are.
I mean, some of them are.
But they're there because they are trying to do something different to the average person.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I do understand. Yeah, I do. I think I've got one person in mind.
Yeah, well, look, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
There's never going to be 100% these are geniuses.
Yes.
But that's what happens when you have a group of people who are out there putting new ideas out. Some are awesome, some are not so awesome, and that's okay. But the point being that I got to meet people who were thinking about things slightly differently and presenting different ideas.
Were they thinking outside the box?
Wow, our sort of people, in fact.
What I will say, though, is there was one person in my year, on the day before on the dress rehearsal, came out and delivered off the back of an envelope a completely different, literally written on the back of an envelope, had delivered a completely different talk to the one that was approved. And then the conversation had to happen of, why are you changing your talk right at the last minute? You have to go with the one now that Ted has approved, or you will get cut.
Well, that's it. Yeah, they'll pull you from the event.
Yeah,
and they've got
you
the
can't
right
mess
to do
about
that.
with this. Yeah,
yeah. I think that's. I mean, you learn that fairly quickly, though, that you can't just spout whatever you want because it's a really valuable platform you're being allowed to sort of put your ideas out on.
Exactly that.
But yeah, so before the day of, as in,
yes,
that was pretty intense day, wasn't it?
It was. Do you know what though? By the time I got there on the day, I was still hella nervous. Don't get me wrong, but I kind of got swept up in the excitement.
Yeah.
Like I got there and there's a big poster with my face on it.
Yeah.
And there's all the things around the theatre and I don't know. I felt a bit like a rock star that day. I'll be honest. It was really cool.
Yeah, I know what you mean. There's an amazing energy about the event when you get there.
Yeah, so I kind of got swept up in that, and I honestly at that point just thought, like, I'm not even religious, but I'm like, it's in God's hands now. Like, I'll either remember it or I won't. There's nothing I can do.
And that is such a wise attitude to adopt. And,
Yeah.
you know, people talk about having public speaking fear, you know,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, guaranteed you've done all the prep you can do now.
Yes.
Yeah, and you've probably done it to your satisfaction. Otherwise, you wouldn't have, you know, gone to bed that night and woken up this morning, you know.
I slept so badly that night, though, I'll tell you that.
Well, no, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's probably
Yeah.
part of the, I think most people did.
I think I cracked a few cocodamol just so I could have a nap.
But this is the thing, your message is written, your
Yeah.
talk's written, it's going out there, and it's just like you say, it's in God's hands in as much as, well, I can't decide whether the people that are listening to this are going to appreciate the message, they're going
Yeah.
to agree with it, they're going to disagree with it. All I can decide is what I say.
Yes.
And I've decided that ages ago, so I've got
Yeah.
nothing to do now
I just
except
have to recite it.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly that.
and there's a certain zen that comes over you when you realise that. I mean, some of the people in my cohort, as I say, changed elements of their talks the night before.
Yeah,
you know, and
that would do me in. I couldn't.
One of the ladies was backstage choosing which jacket to wear, which were both completely different colours and styles. And I remember thinking of you like a year earlier, thinking, I don't think Britt would have left this decision to the 5 minutes before you walk out there.
Absolutely not.
But,
absolutely not.
But no, because everything was prepped, it was like, right, let's just do it. And I remember, yeah, the feeling of being in front of the audience.
On the dot.
On the dot.
On the dot. You had a bigger dot than me.
Yeah, we insisted on a bigger dot. we actually, your old second-hand recycled dot from the year before was just brought out, given a bit of a wash and an iron. There's the dot. And we were like, this is a tiny dot. I think we deserve a bigger dot.
I didn't want a big dot, and I'll tell you why. If you watch, we talk about our friend Sophie doing spatial anchoring. If you watch my talk, I do not move.
You don't move. You
do not
plant
move
yourself and
like a
stand
tree.
there. Yeah, exactly.
And I say, no,
yeah.
you move. I just, I think I Captain America reference for you. I just stood there and I just didn't move a single muscle, to the point where, genuinely, after I walked off stage, my big toes on both feet had gone numb, because I was I was so tense. Like, I was so tense. And I can hear it. You might not be able to hear it in my voice because you don't hear my voice as often as I do, luckily for you. But I can hear it in my voice that the first 5 minutes of my 13-minute talk, I sound nervous. Yeah. Now, it's hard to explain because it doesn't come across that way.
No, it doesn't. I was going to say that. You know it.
But I know it. Yeah. But I do remember after that 5 minutes, after I realised this is okay, everything is okay, you are okay, I started to enjoy it. Yeah,
you relax into it and you feel like, okay, now I'm in my flow.
The one thing that worried me was because I talk about something very emotional. I talk about my life, I talk about my mum, I talk about my depression, I talk about all of that. When I did the dress rehearsal the day before, and there was only like 6 people in the audience, it was all my fellow speakers, and I did the talk and they clapped, I felt this weird sensation and I just started crying in the dress rehearsal. Yeah. And I was like, do not do this on the day because that will be on camera. Do not start crying. Yeah. And I remember when it was finished, I got a little bubble in my throat, but nothing like the day before. And I just felt really proud of myself.
Yeah. And I was proud of you as well.
Oh, you stood up.
I did, gave a standing ovation.
You did, which you see in the video as well. And then I took a deep breath and I walked off stage. And the really funny thing was I was wearing really high heels and my only overriding thought was, do not fall down those stairs. Because there was like 3 steps down that I had to go down. And I remember thinking that the stairs were the last part of my talk.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I remember thinking your talk is not done until you are safely down those stairs and behind that curtain.
Well, they do talk about don't just walk, because the overriding feeling is scurry off stage, run. Now you've done it, run. And they say, no, wait there, allow the audience to give you a round of applause and then walk
slowly
off.
go off stage. Yeah, and that's what I did. And that's what I did.
Yeah, that's amazing. And honestly, when I came off stage as well, the feeling of accomplishment that you did it, you got through it, you said every word, and it's there now, and it's out. It's done. Yeah. You
can do no more. And the thing was as well, my talk was just before the lunch break.
Yeah.
So I gave my talk, and then I think I've made my way upstairs, and then you came out of the auditorium and found me. Yeah. And I was like, "Can I have a drink, please?"
I think I can't conceive of you being more nervous than I was watching you. and I think when I think about how I felt the day of, it was similar feelings. I couldn't honestly detach the feeling. It was worse for me watching you because I couldn't do anything about anything.
Yeah.
All I could do was watch it. Whereas at least with me, I'm like, right, it's up to me whether I remember these words or not. You know,
I had a similar feeling watching you. I was just watching you, feeling so proud, knowing on the journey that you'd gone, knowing how much you wanted this, and knowing how hard you'd worked for it. And just, I remember just watching you, and just my heart, just I was nervous for you. I was hella nervous for you, but my heart just was swelling with pride. And just to go through that experience, and the fact that we've both been through that experience together. It's that thing, isn't it? That like there's sometimes in life, you know, you go through something and your partner can't fully understand, but they can empathise. But this was something stressful and big, and something that we'll never forget that we've both been through. And I think that there's something really comes from that shared experience. Yeah,
I think it does. I think it connects us in some level that otherwise we wouldn't have had, you know. So last thing I want to talk about before we finish up. After the talk, of course, it doesn't end when you walk off stage.
It does not.
There is then the process of your talk being put out there. And I remember
being accepted by Ted.
Well, that was, okay, so that was, let's go there then, because Ted, as in the great god Ted, has to watch the videos once they're edited.
I imagine him like the timekeepers in
Loki. Yeah, exactly. Sort of overseeing everything, watching everything and deciding yes or no. Do you get pruned? Do you get, you know? And it was, so the talks went away, and I remember Leo coming back to me and saying, right, they've flagged it to be investigated a bit further. She said, I don't know what happens now because it's never happened in the 3 years we've run TEDx. So all of your cohort just like, yep, accepted, it goes up on YouTube. And then I had this agonising...
Mine was the last of my year, though, to go up.
It was actually, wasn't it? Because all the others, we saw them... Because you don't get told, do you? They just go live.
Up. And I think it was... Who was it? Was it Shoti? I think Shoti's went up first. And then that was it. We were all refreshing. And then all of TEDx Folkestone went up. And then a few more of a different TEDx. And then mine. And I was like, and that sort of week, 2 weeks, I was like, what's going on? Why don't they like me? But it just is how it is. You know, there's no rhyme or reason.
Well, there's just people in an office somewhere just overseeing them, signing them off, uploading them to YouTube. And probably it'd be wrong of us to think there's just one person sitting there doing them in order. But so it went away, and I was asked to show Ted qualifications.
To
as
show
in
you
what right have I got to talk about anxiety. And so I'm like gathering, well, I have a clinical hypnotherapy diploma, and I'm a fellow of the Academy of Hypnotic Arts. And when I realised all they really wanted to know is, are you a doctor, son? or are you just... and Leah was like, look, the worst case scenario is they just refuse to put it up. And
that I was like,
that is pretty bad, to be fair. As a worst case scenario.
After all this,
I know, and I was actually formulating in my mind, right, I'll apply again next year, and I'll this time do something. I'll find out what it was that they decided not to allow.
Or I'll apply to a different location.
Well, you know, or something. They'll all go to TED. You know, it doesn't matter which TEDx you go through, they'll go to TED. And then it was just one day, and it was suddenly live, and all they did was put a disclaimer on it that said
in the text at the bottom.
Yeah, that's it. There's if you look at my TEDx talk online, you'll see it says this represents the opinions of this person based on their experience, and I think they just have to make sure, you know, that somebody's not taking my advice, coming a cropper for some reason, and then blaming Ted for that. It's one of those disclaimer things, isn't it?
What I find interesting is that in my talk, I talk about how I came off antidepressants, cold. Which they tell you not to do. And I'm not there saying everyone should do that, because it was the worst thing I ever did. I do not advise doing that. I'm not on antidepressants anymore since that day. But I came off them cold, which you're not supposed to do. So do not do this. If you're on antidepressants, you want to come off them, do not do what I did, because I suffered very badly withdrawal. It was horrible. Don't do it. But I said that I did it in my talk. And I found it interesting that they didn't flag that up. As potentially influencing people.
Well, I was concerned that, because I talk about doctors in the talk, and I wasn't going to put that bit in because I thought, well, that's a bit potentially contentious or controversial. But it was the people that were involved in TEDx and my fellow speakers
that told you to say it.
When we were talking about the topic, because we had this, one of our meetings, one of our preparation events was, tell us what, you know, gets you annoyed about the way things are viewed in your, you know, regarding your topic at the moment. And it was one of the best sessions we did, because we all started to talk passionately about why we were giving this talk. And I remember it was Caroline Bolton from my cohort that said, you've got to put that stuff in about the doctor. because she said that really resonates with me.
Yeah.
That's exactly the bit that people need to hear.
Mm.
So it was one of those things where I remember we were driving somewhere and I just heard that it had been flagged up, and I was saying, shouldn't put that stuff in about doctor and medication and
Well,
stuff
if I
like
remember,
that.
I told you not to put it in.
Yeah, I think you did actually. Yeah, because you were like,
I don't
maybe
think...
dodgy.
Yeah.
But you know, I suppose it's all history now, and all's well that ends well. But it went up, and but I guess I understand why they wanted to just put a disclaimer on it, because it's on their platform.
Yeah.
And they need to let people know this is not our medical opinion. You know, this is not
just this man.
Yeah, this strange man with the blue cardigan.
You say all's well that ends well. Well, it certainly has, because what's just happened with your TED Talk, babe?
What just happened? I've just hit 1 million views on my TED Talk. Which is amazing when you think about it, isn't it?
1 million views.
I know.
Well done. I'm very proud of you.
Oh, well, you know what? I'm proud of me as well, to be fair, you know, without, which again, tooting the own trumpet. But I feel...
No, you have to toot.
It's one of those... I just thought maybe a few thousand people would see it, which is, you know, what happens to most of the talks, because there's a hell of a lot of talks.
Hello.
Okay, but the thing is, yeah, my talk was to be seen, a message to get out there. Yours, I remember when you were putting yours up on YouTube and that you were sort of submitting the text for it and you were titling it, and you deliberately didn't talk depression in the title. You didn't say anything that might suggest any... You kind of wanted to hide it, because you were very much like, I don't want to put myself out there.
I just didn't want people slagging me off. That was all I wanted. Because,
which is, I get
because
that.
I'm a woman, A, so I'm naturally going to get more slagged off on the internet anyway. B, whenever I speak anything about my mental health and the things that helped me, I inevitably get the whatabouters, when it's like, what about this? And you kind of this, and I get the people, you know, sometimes when I've spoken about depression and how I didn't feel depressed after that, I got the... Well, if you didn't feel depressed afterwards, then you didn't have depression in the first place. It's like, okay, say that to when I was trying to kill myself.
See, this is the problem.
So I just didn't, I honestly didn't feel mentally strong enough to deal with YouTube dickheads. So I purposely entitled it something a little bit vague so that it would just be there and exist, and I could share it out if I wanted to, because I'm still really proud of that message.
You should be.
I still, you know, even though now, obviously after the great panini of 2020, like I feel... I experience depression more these days than I have for a long time. Yeah. But I still absolutely stand by my message that having something that you can focus on in your life massively helps your mental health. And I still stand by that. Was the message of my TED Talk, and I still stand by it.
And it is absolutely a defining principle. And the problem so many have struggled as this prolonged period of lockdown and isolation has continued is because it's harder to see the light we're moving towards as we get deeper into the darkness. You know? And it is absolute. It's a perfect message, and it's absolutely valid from that moment to now. And this is again, I guess, one of the reasons why we're really proud of what we achieved there. And I guess we just wanted to talk about our experience of going through that process, because it's not often in life you get to do something that you regard as having some, you know, being part of some sort of legacy. And I do feel like for both of us, I'm really proud of both of us for having that message out there. And I'm really pleased that people have got to see what we've spoken about and got to hear our message. And I guess and I don't know, we said before we started this one, what's the point of this one? This episode? What's the message at the end? And I don't really have a clear message.
The message is go watch the TED Talks, because they're really good. That's the message. So Tim's is about anxiety and mine is about depression. It'll be a real fun afternoon for you to watch them both. No, they're both positive.
I think yours is very, very inspiring, I've got to say. I'm not, as someone who hasn't suffered depression, I think it touches you on a human level rather than if you've been depressed, this will be of value to you. You know, like you say, it's just me telling my story. It's a human story, and I think we can relate to it. And, you know, in particular, I love the way you constructed it. And there's that moment at the end where, you do feel like you want to cry when you know, there is a lump in the throat moment. And I love that. I love that. And I think, you know, that's the sign of a good talk when it touches you. And that's why I would say watch it no matter who you are, because it is amazing.
And, you know, I would say watch yours because it's really good as well. But we're going to stop this now because we're just complimenting each other. So, but I will say you can go watch our TED Talks. They are on YouTube, as we say. Tim's, if you search Timbox
If you just put Tin Box Anxiety, it will come up, but the title is How to Stop Feeling Anxious About Anxiety.
Put Tin Box Anxiety in there. Mine is in my name before Tim and I got married. It was the year we got married, actually, and I feel like I should have had it put in box, but I didn't. I didn't want you jinx anything. So mine's under Wyatt, which is WHYATT. So if you put Britt Wyatt, TEDx, or Britt Wyatt, Courage to Continue, it'll be there. We will also link them as well in the podcast show notes, so you can go give them a watch. Mine's only 12 minutes of your life. Tim's is about 18 minutes of your life. It's not, it's not a big watch, but we both really, really think that you'll get something from it, as you do when you listen to this podcast. So thank you very much for joining us on this podcast. You can also find me on Instagram at BrittMarieBox. You can find Tim at TimBox Mind Coach. And while you're on YouTube, Tim has some great YouTube videos about anxiety and mental health that I highly recommend you check out.
And also, can we ask you to subscribe to this podcast?
Yes.
We said this the other day, wouldn't we? We never asked to subscribe.
No, please subscribe. Do all the good stuff. Please share it as well to people that you think might enjoy it and get something from it, because the more people that listen to this, the more reason we have to sit down and do it every week.
Brilliant. And the more reason I have to get Britt out of bed to do it. Yes.
Exactly. Oh, look, I'm awake now. Here we are. We're done.
You are.
Brilliant. But thanks very much, guys. Thanks for listening.
And keep thinking outside the box.
Bye.
Bye.